Hello and welcome to Service Design Part 2. My name is Lowell Amos. I'm an ITIL expert, and today I'm going to talk for a few minutes about the service design phase in the life cycle. This is the second lesson in the service design phase, and today we're going to cover a few more of the critical components of design. In this lesson, we'll begin with a brief review of the material we covered in Service Design Part 1. We'll then move into some of the critical processes of the service design phase. These include design coordination, information security management, service catalog management, and supplier management. In Service Design Part 3, we'll cover the balance of the processes. So let's get started. In a previous lesson, we covered some key concepts. We talked about the goal of the service design phase to design new and significantly changed services. We covered the idea of how service design maps to business value by reducing total cost of ownership, improving quality and performance of services. And we talked about the 5 aspects of service design, including the service solutions themselves, the service management processes, the key technical and management architectures required, the processes, and the measurements and metric systems. Hopefully these concepts you've had a chance to review and are comfortable with, because we're going to be building on them in this lesson. One of the critical processes of the service design phase is that of design coordination. Its purpose and objective is to make sure that all of the activities of the service design stage are met through a single point of coordination and control. The scope of design coordination covers all the activities of design, particularly for new or changed services transitioning into or out of a live environment, and ties back to service strategy through service portfolio management. Sometimes these activities are part of a project and may be governed by project management, or they may be governed by standalone change processes without a formal project being in place. Which approach is taken varies organization to organization. But the point is, a single point of coordination provides a great deal of value in the service design phase to make sure we don't miss anything. Here are some of the values of the design coordination phase. It ensures that consistency of design for appropriate services, information systems, service management processes and architectures, and metrics are in place to meet the current and evolving business outcomes. This is a critical understanding. Business outcomes change over time as the competitive landscape changes. The rate of change in business continues to increase, and we need to have a way to make sure that we have the appropriate services designed to meet those current and evolving business outcomes. Design coordination coordinates these activities across projects, changes, suppliers, support teams, and works to manage resource conflicts where required. It also plans and coordinates the resources and capabilities required for new or changed services. The primary output of the design coordination process is to produce the service design package and hand them over to service transition as agreed and consistent with the policies and standards within an organization. They also manage the quality and requirements criteria and the handover points between strategy and transition, and ensures the service solutions conform to all the strategic and architectural governance and other corporate requirements. In a sense, the design coordinator, or the person running the design coordination process, is the quarterback for the service design phase. It's their job to make sure all of the pieces and parts within an organization work together to produce a consistent and effective service design package. Another critical process within the service design phase of the life cycle is information security management. You'll recall from previous lessons that security is a principal component of warranty. In the information security management process during the service design phase helps establish the design and architectures of the security requirements of a particular service. The process ensures confidentiality, integrity, and availability of an organization's assets and information and data is available when required. Confidentiality is the idea that we will only disclose information to those that have a business need or are authorized to receive it. Integrity means that the information is accurate and complete, and the availability of the organization's data is available to those who need to have it. The principal goal of the information security management process is to align IT security with business security. This is an important point. Security is a business issue, not an IT issue, although IT oftentimes enables business security policies to be met through controls and standards. IT security must be aligned with business security. There has to be an understanding from a business point of view. What is it that we must secure, and how secure must it be? This varies organization to organization. In healthcare, business security is a critical and highly focused piece of value, and IT security must recognize that and make sure the appropriate controls are there to meet both business security needs as well as regulatory compliance. In other industries, the business security requirements are less stringent, and IT security may invest less in securing their information assets than they would in other organizations. The goal of information security is to ensure that information security is effectively managed in all services and IT service management activities. This includes things like testing and training and awareness of employees. In the dimensions of security, as we discussed earlier, we must consider the confidentiality, availability, and integrity of the data and information assets. Here are some basic definitions. Availability. Information must be available and usable when required. Confidentiality. Information should be only disclosed to those who have a right to know. We must understand who should be allowed to view, read, write, or change data or information, and have policies and tools in place to maintain that confidentiality. Integrity means the information must be complete, accurate, and protected against unauthorized modification. This is an important point and is oftentimes challenging for organizations to understand within the framework. Authentication and non-repudiation means that business transactions as well as information exchanges with partners or suppliers can be trusted. There are 4 perspectives that information security considers. They are organizational, that defines security policies and staff awareness. They are procedural, that consists of the procedures used to control security. Physical security involves access to the site and protects against security incidents of unauthorized personnel. And technical are the controls used to protect the IT infrastructure against security incidents. These are things like firewalls and firewall rules. The information security management policy should be documented and support the organization's overall approach to business security. These policies should be accessible by users and customers and well published. The compliance with them should be outlined in service level requirements and service level agreements, as well as underpinning contracts. Management support and buy-in is critical to a successful information security management policy. They should be reviewed and revised as necessary. Typical elements of the information security management policies include things like proper use and misuse of corporate information assets, access and password controls, email and internet usage, antivirus, classification and documentation, remote access, supplier access, and how assets are disposed when they're retired. In order to meet these requirements, the information security management system has a framework. If we look at the graphic on the bottom right-hand corner, we plan, implement, evaluate, maintain, and control. These are the elements of the information security management framework. The activities of information security management are involved in almost every phase of the service lifecycle. We develop the ongoing maintenance of the information security policy as a standard or governance framework. We have to communicate, implement, and enforce the security policies. We have to assess and classify information assets and documentation. We need to implement and review security controls. Once security controls are in place, audit plays a critical role in the ability to evaluate whether those controls are being met and are effective. We have to monitor and manage information security incidents. Analysis and reporting and impact the reduction for security breaches and incidents are a part of the continual service improvement program. And conducting reviews, audits, and penetration tests are critical factors in assessing whether or not our controls are effective. There are several roles involved in the idea of information security management. The Information Security Management Auditor, the Security Manager, the Director of Information Security. We have security analysts and program managers. But security is everyone's responsibility, including the business users, the business customers, and all of IT. And that's why the policies that we put in place have to be widely adopted, implemented, and communicated across the organization. Security is a critical component of value. If we go back to our cell phone example, if we had a belief that the cell phone would always be available, had enough capacity, and that a service provider had all of the continuity programs in place to make sure the service would be continuous, and it met all of our expectations from a requirements point of view. However, security was not met. Our voicemails, our conversations, and our text messages were not secure. The value of the service would clearly be damaged, and the service provider would likely lose customers. Service catalog management is another critical process of the service design phase. The primary goal of service catalog management is to provide a consistent source of information on all the operational agreed-to services, and it allows them to be widely available to those who are approved to have access to it. This is where we document what is it that IT does for the business in a way that's usable. The scope of service catalog management is to provide and maintain accurate information on all services transitions or being transitioned into a live environment. Remember, the service catalog is the component of the service portfolio that is currently operational and available for use. We capture information about our services to publish in the catalog. These might include things like a description of the service, the name of the service, the method by which we can obtain the service, how much the service costs, who the service owner is, and how the service is supported. The Service Catalog Manager is responsible for producing and maintaining the service catalog, and develops and maintains the interfaces and dependencies upon them. The service catalog can come in two flavors: the business service catalog, which is what's available to be viewed by the business users and customers, and the technical services catalog. The technical services catalog captures those relationships within the IT organization and typically underpins the business services. For instance, let's take the example of an email service. From a business point of view, the business users would be able to request and configure their email box as they need it. That's a service that an IT organization could provide. But underpinning that email service, there might be several technical services entries within the technical service catalog. These might include things like the POP services, the SMTP services, the Outlook client services, and the Microsoft Exchange services. Depending on organizational design, each of those services could be worked together and would be governed by an operational level agreement between the departments within the IT organization. All four of those technical services may have to come together in order to provide the email service to the business user. Here are the aspects of the service catalog management that we were just discussing. The business service catalog contains those details of the IT services defined in the context of customers and users. It's used to form a customer view of the service catalog. This could further be segmented by user group or user profiles. For instance, in the email example, the legal department may have a retention requirement, and that could be an enhancing service to the email service that is only available to those members of the legal department. It would be part of the business service catalog. The technical service catalog contains the details of the IT service delivered to customers that includes the relationships between groups or departments within a service provider. It is generally not visible to customers and users. As you can imagine, the business service catalog should be written in plain English that's easy to understand by the business, whereas the technical service catalog, the audience is more technical and therefore may have more technical detail of the specific underpinning technical services required. Here are some examples. A business service catalog, the inventory reporting service, point of sale services, or the email services. These are things that the business understands. Inventory reporting, particularly in manufacturing or distribution, is extremely important to have insight into what inventory we carry. A business person understands this idea. Point of sale services. For retail organizations, point of sale is a critical service that needs to be provided and supported and is enabled by the IT organization. And the email service. Again, business people understand the value and the importance of the email service. From a technical point of view, the technical services catalog might have things in there like Microsoft Exchange services or SMTP service or the server deployment services. Not to say that business people couldn't understand these entries, but they're not likely to make use of them in their day-to-day need. These are really services that are consumed within the IT organization between departments in order to underpin a business service. Another critical component of service design is the idea of supplier management. Our partners or suppliers are those third-party vendors that we need in order to make use of the goods and services. They are a critical component of service design, and no organization provides services without vendors. Vendors have to be managed, and supplier management is the place where we set up the systems and measurement methods to understand and evaluate how our suppliers are performing in the context of the SLAs that their products and services support for our business customers. The goal of supplier management is to obtain the value for the money spent with suppliers and to ensure that they perform to contract specifications. We also need to make sure that our underpinning contracts with our suppliers support our OLAs and SLAs because that can impact customers. The overall objective is to ensure that supplier and contract value for money is realized and ensure that underpinning contracts and agreements are aligned to business need. We need to manage supplier relationships and negotiate and finalize supplier contracts, manage supplier performance, and maintain the supplier policy and supplier contract database. This is all part of supplier management, and it's important understanding to realize that suppliers play a critical role in the design and management and execution of the services we provide as an IT organization for the business. As an example, let's consider an organization that doesn't have a good supplier management process. In organizations that don't manage suppliers in a mature or robust or thoughtful way, oftentimes end up in a place where high-level managers or mid-level managers negotiate, evaluate, and execute contracts for their department or their group. In this scenario, we could end up in a place where the same supplier has several different contracts with the same organization, depending on who negotiated it, at what time, and for what product or services. This creates a great deal of redundancy and management overhead in order to maintain those contracts at a departmental level when they could be centralized and managed at an organizational level. This creates not only overhead and challenges, but also can end up in a place where their contracts are written with different terms and conditions from a payment and performance point of view. This creates the conflict, and oftentimes the contracts that are in place will not support the OLAs and SLAs of the organization, and therefore business customers begin to see degraded performance in their services. This is the result of poor supplier management. Supplier management is a critical aspect of service design and should be considered as we design any service. The Supplier Contract Management Database is a tool or management information system that can be used to give us information about suppliers. It's part of the overall knowledge management system of the organization. We should look at supplier management from a life cycle point of view as well. All contracts and suppliers move through a life cycle just like services. Those suppliers might be strategic, tactical, or commodity, or we may choose to look at them as primary or secondary. But the point is, the supplier contract database is a tool that contains the key attributes of the suppliers, what contracts, products, and services they offer, and how they're performing against those contracts over time. So let's do some basic review. We just talked about the supplier contract database. It's a database or structured document used to manage supplier contracts throughout the life cycle. A configuration item is any component that needs to be managed in order to deliver an IT service. It is recorded in the configuration record within the configuration management system, and we'll talk a great deal about configuration items when we get to service asset configuration management in service transition. So what we covered in this lesson was a review of the service design part 1. We covered some of the critical components or processes within the service design phase. This includes information security management. We talked about confidentiality, availability, and integrity of the data, as well as the information security management framework. We talked about the service catalog management as the role of producing a service catalog that describes the operational services within the organization. And then we talked about supplier management. We defined a couple basic terms, including the supplier contract management database and the configuration item. In future lessons, we'll cover the balance of the service design phase of the life cycle. Today, I hope you learned something, and I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.